Kinesis. Practical Wisdom with Scott Allen.
Hello, I am Scott Allen, and thanks to my daughter Kate for developing the intro to the Practical Wisdom for Leaders podcast, where we offer a smart, fast-paced discussion on all things leadership. My guests help us explore timely topics and incorporate practical tips to help you make a difference in how you lead and live. If you haven't done so, please click subscribe so you automatically, seamlessly stay in the know when we publish new episodes. Likewise, please provide me with feedback. What do you like? What do you dislike? And what else would you like to know? And now, today's show. Laura Guilliam, I just mentioned a restaurant, Taza, and you were one of the last people that I actually had a meal with live. And we had this really fun conversation. We were talking about remote workers. We were talking about virtual leadership. We were talking about where potentially we're going to take some of your studies in your PhD program. And here we are, months later. I mean, this was likely, I could look at the date, it was probably last February.
Yep, right before the big March 12th or wherever you may live that day.
Yes. So everybody, we have Laura Guilliam on the podcast today. She's at the Progressive Corporation, and she is an OD and research consultant in that organization. And I'm excited. She's also a PhD candidate. So we have a reflective practitioner. We have a practitioner scholar. We have someone who's at the intersection of a couple different places. And I'm really excited for this conversation, Laura. Maybe share a little bit more about you, and then we'll jump into virtual relationships and leadership and organizational relationships in this new world. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thanks. I'm honored to be here. It's nice to actually be on this side of it. I'm obviously a fan of your program, so it's great to be sitting here with you talking on this side of it. Obviously, leadership is something I love and feel passionate about. So, again, it's great to talk with someone who studies and transfers that type of knowledge to others. I spend a great deal of time, as you mentioned, doing this within the organization. So that makes me a practitioner scholar. So I live in both those spaces. And so I love digging into theory of leadership and all the nuances that surround that wonderful topic, and all the tough work that everybody's doing, especially now in that space. And with Progressive, they have committed to digging into the social side of that. So this is a company that really focuses on the utilization of technology and the design of great products and services, right? Very strategy driven. So for them to dedicate time and effort to the social science of leadership makes me fall in love with them even more. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's my life right now. So it combines. It's my purpose because I love studying relationships at all dimensions. So, all your relationships from what you do at home, how you're a father, husband, friend, how you interact with your community, and all dimensions of your leadership, wherever that may fall, to you in the classroom. So I like studying that. And in Progressive, I do the same thing. I like knowing about people. First of all, I believe everyone at Progressive is a leader. Whether their title holds that or not, leadership is all-encompassing, right? So some people are leaders in the PTA, some people are leaders, with our frontline, some are leaders in our social responsibility efforts or our D&I efforts, but everybody's a leader. So I like studying that, exploring that, digging into that with people, and really understanding the emotional side of leadership, the emotional intelligence, the relational components of why do people fall in love, or why do people feel loyalty or respect or trust towards certain people, and how do those degrees change? That's really interesting. So yeah, it's everything. It's who I am as a mom. It's who I am hopefully as a wife and friend. And it's definitely something that I am passionate about in my workplace.
Well, and when I think of progressive, I've had Trisha Griffith, the CEO, in class before, and she's such a wonderful presenter. She's such a wonderful soul, such an incredible energy. She's been, I believe it was Forbes Business Person of the Year, came up through the HR kind of operations pathway, and we'll have lunch with employees, and people know her, and meets with every incoming group of new hires and shares her thoughts and perspectives on leadership. And so, at least within that organization, what I've absolutely loved about my interaction with people at Progressive is that you can feel the energy. You can feel the energy and the passion for the organization. And the last time she spoke in class, I basically had a transcript of the presentation. I just said, "You need to write a book."
She really does. She does. Yeah, she's amazing, right? So she makes my work easy. She's a daily source of inspiration. So all of us can write about the poor leaders we had in our life, and we've learned tremendous things from them, right? And unfortunately we have those in our life, but hopefully we can pull the good and learn from that. But when you're working in an organization that has an amazing leader who just gets it, who appreciates people, puts people first, like Trisha does, the way you interact with leadership is completely different. So I'm not afraid. I don't shy away from poor leadership. I love studying that and seeing to what degree we can, snuff that out. Um, that's my goal. But when you see someone like Trisha, and I get to see her daily, even in a virtual world, how she is generating positive inspiration to her people across the country, that's just fun and exciting to study, and that will be the source of most of my work. How do we take what Trisha offers and what she does every day and spread that knowledge and that expertise and allow people to do the same in their own unique way? So she's amazing. I'm very lucky in that space.
Well, and you just said something that was really where I would love to go. This kind of, even in a virtual space, how do these relationships, so what are you exploring? What are you thinking about right now, either on an academic side or just an organizational side, when it comes to virtual relationships? Because Progressive is such a relationship-based organization already. What are some of your observations that you've made in recent months?
Yeah, great question. So I was studying this before this pandemic and social crisis and political division, all this happened, right? And that has added just complexity issues that have allowed us to dig in even deeper. But prior to that, you're right. We are a company that believes that relationships are the core of everything. We believe in trying to figure out how to build relationships with our customers, not just acquire more, but have them fall in love with the company that protects them. Same thing with our people. We want people to come to work and be not just proud of what they do, but fall in love with their workspace and have the opportunity to build relationships and leave there and have friendships, to really have a relationship with their organization because of the amount of time they spend there and because it just makes you feel great as a person. This whole crisis has shifted my research and shifted Progressive. So we had the luxury within our company of having beautiful buildings with wonderful, probably one of the largest private collection of art, in the nation. And then events, really fun, great events for employees, celebrating their milestone anniversaries, celebrating birthdays, celebrating retirements, people coming in. We obviously we have the naming rights of Progressive Field, so we participated fully in that with opening day and events throughout that. We were a very physical relationship company, and by that I mean we interacted with each other. Even if you didn't work at headquarters, there's buildings across the country. People would, travel to be together. We'd have team meetings. Physical events together were very important, and all of us are feeling this, right? So if you don't get to be with your family or you've had to distance to protect, there is something that's happened. And what happened at Progressive that I'm studying is we had to let go of that, right? So all of us were sent home. 43,000 people, for the most part, were sent home, and so we didn't have that physical space keeping us together. And then our events, we couldn't have our events. So those were taken away. And then even things like tchotchkes, like our progressive t-shirts, our jackets, those things sound silly, but those are relational items. It's like wearing your college alma mater t-shirt for the game and stuff. That creates pride. So
Laura, when I have never gotten a better bag of tchotchkes than when I spoke at Progressive.
Good.
I came home and I was like, kids, and I'm handing them dolls of flow and all kinds of flow things. And, it was just, I agree with you. I've lived that. Yes.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun when I walk down the street on Halloween and I see people wearing flow costumes. Like it's just a sense of pride when you see that. And all that was taken away, Scott. And what we were left with, the one thing that COVID didn't take from us was relationships. And so that's what we have, and that's what we're left with. And obviously it's a passion point of mine. And so for two reasons, I'm very concerned with that. One, how do I help my leaders protect those relationships when they don't have the support of their surroundings and the opportunity to build events, even pulling people into a room to talk really quick. We have video communication and we have relationships, two things. So how do we sustain those relationships that were so strong before? Can we sustain them? Can they? And people are questioning, like, can we have great relationships without being together, without feeling the energy we do, without shaking hands or giving a hug or saying hi or grabbing a cup of coffee together? Those are big concerns for everybody, but especially with us because we did not realize how dependent we were on that. So this is it's a really critical time for us to figure out how do we protect what we built, and we're living off of a residual of what we had before. So as new people come in and they've never seen or experienced all that stuff, will we be able to have them feel that? Will leaders be able to connect them with an organization the same way they did before? I think yes, but I think it's going to take a lot of creativity and some really relational ingenuity is what I call it. So yeah, that's what I'm studying, and that's where my worlds intersect between progressive business and schooling.
So say a little bit more. I love that phrasing, relational ingenuity. Would you talk a little bit more about that?
Right.
Or did you just literally make it up and now you're going to have to figure some stuff?
I know I had to jot that down, like, oh, maybe that's my research topic. Well, there's two words I do use. It's relational physics and relational ingenuity. Right.
Yeah.
So relational physics is just every word, every interaction, even you and I right now. So you're right. We used to be able to go have lunch or have a cup of coffee and talk and generate brainstorm and just have, fun dialogue, casual interactions, a lot of people, and you get energy from that because just the physicality of that, right? But your words still held a positive and negative charge. When you popped online and I got to greet you and you come out with a smile and you say hello, that's a positive energy that creates inspiration for me. So what I need to do is just pay attention to those words and behaviors that are leaders. So in a leadership role, you're the leader of this podcast, right? So what you say and what you do probably holds more weight than what I say or do. So understanding that and you managing that and knowing that you have the capability of giving me energy through your leadership of this podcast and also through which words, actions, and gestures that you make, and knowing that you only have this limited space to do it. You got this little screen and this little amount of time, and then we're done. And then I walk away with everything that you've given me. And if you've given me 10 little atoms of positive relational energy, I get to use that for my next relationship, right? So I go into the kitchen, I'm happy with the kids. They start giving me positive energy and it's residual. So relational physics from a leader standpoint is really important. And the ingenuity of that is what I mean. Like, before March 12th, I keep using that date because that's the one I remember in Ohio when the governor came out and everything stopped and we're like, wow, this is going to be a rough 2 weeks.
Yes.
2 years, right? So we're like, wow, how are we going to do this? And here we are. We've been relationally, we've had relational ingenuity. Somehow Zoom entered our vocabulary. And now it's not just a word, it's our tool. Who knows what tomorrow's tools will be? Who knows? But we will figure it out because we are human beings who thrive on relationships. And so we will start to come up with creative ways. We're already doing that right? We're
Yep.
coming up with creative ways to stay connected and build our relationships. So I'd like to tap into that and see how leaders are getting creative. I observe them, I pop in on Zooms, I interview them, and I try to really see. You'd be amazed at what these people are figuring out to keep their folks together and keep them feeling good and in the game and all that kind of stuff. So that's some of the stuff I'm interested in.
Well, I was reflecting on this the other day. My wife and I walk every day, and so we get outside and we connect and we just get some exercise and have really, really good conversations. And we were talking about feelings of isolation and feelings, because you and I talked about that isolation that employees can feel when they're remote, right? That we had that conversation at lunch the last time we met. But when I think about this podcast, you'd mentioned this podcast, what's so interesting is I'm probably having 1 or 2 or 3 conversations a week. So this right now is filling my bucket. 2 days ago, I spoke with Brad Jackson, who's in New Zealand, and that filled my bucket. So in a weird way, this has kept me connected. It's helped me network. It's helped me build current relationships I have, make new relationships. It's been this really, so in a sense, it's been kind of an ingenious way. I didn't know I was doing this, but it's been a way for me to stay connected and actually thrive, right? Because I've built relationships with people I never would have had relationships with because of this medium. So this medium was literally born out of me being on a treadmill and thinking, I need something to do with my mind.
Right. No,
around March 12th.
Such a great example, and you're humble about it, Scott, but that is relational ingenuity. You have taken even a tool that existed that maybe we weren't using as robustly, or maybe you added some rigor to it, and you're right, you're connecting people. I have used podcasts here and there. You've like reignited my passion around podcasts. I have a list now of podcasts that I listen to. Yours is top. But yeah, like that's pretty impressive. Like you've inspired folks to reconnect with a tool that allows them to go for a walk and learn about something they love, or hear a conversation and connect with someone they would have never connected with except for the fact you brought them in. So that's just great.
Well, and again, it wasn't by design. It's just been a happy accident that this is one way. Because again, my wife will say, well, I feel cut off. And I don't know. I feel like I'm still connecting with people and getting that bucket filled in that way. Like you, I will go upstairs because I'm in my basement after this and help get dinner ready and I'll feel ready for the evening. It's energizing. And so what other tactics have you seen? Have you come across some unique approaches that you've seen some leaders use? What comes to mind?
So I think companies are helping, like for example, some of the recording opportunities and different technology you've used to even have this show, right?
Sure.
American Greetings is I don't even know if I'm allowed to plug companies, and I don't own stock in it, so I'm not. But
yeah,
they've gotten
talk
creative.
About AG.
They have an e-card service that you can put people's names in, and they've got stars, and you can send a greeting card to Scott Allen, because now I can't give it to you in person. I could mail it, but online I can send it, and Shaq is saying your name and happy birthday, or Donny Osmond is singing to you. Like, that's creative. That stuff, like, technology is helping us get fun. You're probably using Instagram or different things that your kids are using that you would never use, but now to get fun and get in the game with them, or to send something to students or something, you're using different tools for that. I'd say people are even figuring out ways to use older tools too, like writing. Like we're reconnecting with the old-fashioned writing and sending of cards and things. These creative things you're seeing on the news with people driving by and holding signs, or teachers figuring out how to connect with their students and doing these car parades or birthday. We don't have a laundry list now, but if you just look around you for one day, you will see at least 5 to 10 examples of people either using something we used to use before and reconfiguring it to meet the needs, or coming up with something totally new. Now, Zoom was kind of we didn't even use those words, right? And now none of us my mother knows the term Zoom. That's really exciting though, and it's allowing us, once we figure out the balance of how do I create distance between my work and my home? Or how do I renew myself without as much physical connection? And then when reentry happens and we figure this out, and maybe it won't be as accelerated as we had hoped, but how do we live in that space? Like this change over the next 2 years will demand that we get resilient and creative with the relationships. And those are the things that I will be studying from an academic standpoint and transferring to an organizational standpoint.
Even as you were just speaking, our daughters had a birthday party parade, and it was one of their best birthday parties ever. We have situations where our girls will have 3 different, like a laptop and an iPad and another laptop, and they'll have friends on Zooms, and they'll be playing games together and
Yep.
connecting. That's been my son, of course, is on Xbox, and that's
Yep.
not anything new, but that's a medium that he's connecting with some of his folks. And then I've had this really fun kind of small group of people where we've been testing virtual escape rooms, or we've done a couple the simulations from Harvard Business Publishing. And so there's an Everest simulation, and it's called Patient Zero, and there's a food truck simulation. And so all of those have been really interesting, cool ways to, again, just explore in this new space. Because I think, and then even when I think of the classroom, I have a whole speaker series this spring. A gentleman from Tesla in California, another gentleman from a biotech company in California, people from all over the world who are going to be presenting. And that never would have happened kind of in that previous space.
Right.
So it's that both and, right? But I love that term, relational ingenuity.
Right. You look at companies like Peloton, right? Or
Yes.
Nordic Trek, and they're allowing you to bike across the country, right? You can all of a sudden I can bike in Italy. I can row, in England. I can there are things that we are doing from a leading space, again, with leadership being all of us, that we're taking control of and not being done unto. We're leading in this space, and we're figuring out how to come together and how to create these relational experiences. We'll figure this out. We will figure it out. Can it be as good as in person? I don't know. Me a year ago would have said, no way, you can't replace. But I don't know. I have hope and trust in some of the things that we're doing, like you're mentioning.
Well, I think it's a both and, right? I mean, there's some new options that are available to us.
Yeah.
Again, we had my wife's whole family on a Zoom for just an hour before Christmas Eve.
Wow.
And that never would have happened, that everyone would have shared space together, because certain people were in different places around the country in North America. But this afforded that opportunity to occur. So what else? What else are you exploring and seeing, Laura?
So I'll tell you this, another thing, even at Progressive, we try to, everybody should feel as equal as possible, but you can't get away from, the hierarchy of the organization, understanding, different leadership roles and the front line feeling like they don't sit at the table or whatnot. I think one of the great things that have happened that I'd love to tap into and research is we've kind of flattened the hierarchy. So now everybody's at home. Everybody's experiencing the same thing. Everybody's communicating. You don't have to live at headquarters to get promoted. Hopefully, and that used to be, hey, for our company, and this is with a lot of companies, if you want to get promoted, if you want those high level jobs, you want those leadership jobs, you got to go to where the headquarters is. Unfortunately for our folks, it's in Cleveland. I'm kidding. I'm just saying that because it's cold right now. I love Cleveland. But in all honesty, like now that opens the diversity of who can be a leader possibly. This puts us all a little more even, and we're all using the same techniques. We're all having the same struggles, and I'll give you an example since you used Trisha. Trisha used to do these updates all the time, keep us informed on the business updates. And she, was a CEO sitting in our studio giving the updates. Now she was doing a home video with her son shooting it in her library at her house in a progressive t-shirt. She would talk about business results, how to hang in there, how we're going to support the customer, societal updates. And then in the end, she would talk about her own personal, hey, I'm struggling with M&Ms and cheese balls, and this is hard. She's exposed herself. We have a relational connection that we never had before this.
Yeah.
Some people would have never seen Trisha anyway. They live in California. They live in Austin. They would have never seen her. Now they see her in her house, in their house. So there are some things we would like to explore, like, is this great for the mindset of employees, in that it kind of levels the playing field? Do students feel like, hey, my professor's going through the same thing I am? I know they hate not being together, and there's nothing that will replace some of that stuff. But some of this really makes us more equal, and we're all writing a new playbook. We're dealing with things that nobody's ever had to deal with in our lifetime before, right? So together we're writing about what leadership looks like and what we need tomorrow from leadership, and we'll be on the forefront. But I will tell you, it will never deviate from being relational. We've learned, right, how important, if anything has put relationships at the table, it's COVID. How important those relationships are in leadership, outside of leadership. It has elevated the importance and the value for all of us. They can take our jobs, they can label us essential, non-essential, but relationships trump all.
It's the glue, right?
It's the glue.
It's the glue. It's that connectivity. It's the connective tissue that and when they are not present, it's damaging and it can be toxic. And when they are present, and this doesn't mean that they're easy all the time and that we're not being kind of overly optimistic and naive,
right.
But yes, I mean, because you can feel that. You can feel that when that connective tissue is healthy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's interesting, Scott, you brought up isolation, and, we know that depression, a lot of that is just the heaviness of a pandemic and the social unrest. So those are things we have to pay very close attention to. Those are all the relationship with ourself. That's become more important too, right? Where a lot of times we have more time with ourselves. So we get to sit in and see, what's that relationship like? Is it where I want it to be? So a lot of this has been kind of like an aha or a moment to reflect. But then there's people who maybe don't have 4 kids running around or don't have, and they are by themselves. There's some people too who, the introverts are like, thank you. This is so great. I get some space. I don't have to socialize or go to happy hour. And if I do, I can click out of it. So finally, they who were the introverts who were uncomfortable forever in this extrovert world are like, thank you. But then the extroverts are struggling. Like they've lost some of that energy. So we want to pay attention and make sure that everybody is taken care of, that we do pay attention and don't make light and tell people, hey, we look for the silver lining when they're actually suffering. That part is very real. We want to pay attention. And in organizations, leaders have a commitment to pay attention and dig into those things that sometimes we felt were none of our business. It's our business.
What's interesting about what you just said, an observation or an aha that I have had, just even on if we were to kind of just go with the people who prefer extroversion versus the people who prefer introversion, this experience has very much taken what was very much an extroverted experience, especially in my classes where you have to be engaged, you have to talk, it's experiential, it's active, and almost swung the pendulum this other way where there's a lot of online discussion posts and reflection posts. And so it's been really interesting to observe maybe some of the limitations I previously had. I wasn't creating a space for people who maybe wanted to be more reflective and think through how they were going to respond to something, because I have read some beautiful reflections. And what was interesting is the pendulum swung so far that way that I had a student last spring say, there were a couple missed opportunities to really have some powerful conversations as a team. Wow. And I thought, wow, because I swung too far over here. Yep. And, again, I think even when we do go back to face-to-face live, I'm going to be able to better balance and create some experiences in the classroom to meet that learning style and learning preference.
Wow. That's
but
tremendous
it's so
insight.
Interesting.
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
great
interesting.
insight. And I think you're right, Scott. We do that all the time, right? So
Yep.
we swing, we go from one extreme to the other. And what this is going to call upon us, especially as leaders, is to find that balance, right? To have that relational balance and the business expertise balance, and to have that appreciation for those who love to connect, and to have that appreciation for those who need some space or time to reflect. It's really exposed us to understanding and appreciating the importance of balance all the way around. Maybe we don't have family get-togethers every single holiday. Maybe now we do, one or two, just us or just friends, kind of I don't know. Some people are like, are you crazy? We're going back to family. I get it. But it will at least have us pause and wonder, hey, is this right? And we'll land, I believe, into that balance. Balanced leadership is kind of what I'm phrasing my research right now, where we
Oh,
have an
wonderful.
appreciation for exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know you are a fan of the work of Richard Boyatzis, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Boyatzis, and I know I need to invite him on the podcast at some
Yes.
point.
Yes.
Would you share some of your insights? Because we've spent a lot of time talking about relationships and his notion of positive emotional attractors and negative emotional attractors, and just help
Mm-hmm.
listeners kind of understand that concept, because that's
Absolutely.
important. That's critical.
Yeah, that's a game changer. And you know what? That's something we don't need fancy tools for.
Yeah.
I love tools, but this is something you can just sit and interact with. You could do, use a notebook or a journal to kind of pay attention to. And this is a game changer in life general.
Mm-hmm.
So I did learn this from Richard Boyatzis and Melvin Smith, and this whole notion, like I said before, about relational physics. And what that means is, again, everything that you say and do has a positive or negative charge. Very few things have a neutral charge. When you lay your head
Mm.
down tonight and you say, God, today was a good day, you
Mm.
will know that you had an abundance of positive emotional attractors, that more positive things happen and you feel good about the day. If you lay your
Yeah.
head down tonight, heaven forbid you lay your head down, you go, God, thank God today's over. You will know that you may have had just a little bit of overshoot on the negative emotional attractors. It could be, your meetings didn't go, your Wi-Fi went out, the dog was barking when you're talking. It could be a series of things that you have received as negative emotional attractors. And so what Richard teaches is just the minute you start paying attention to that, the minute I start paying
Mm.
more attention to how I talk to you and what charge does each of my words, my behaviors, my actions have, and in virtual, that is critical, right? So
Yeah.
if I only have 5 minutes with you and I don't pay attention to that, and I deliver three, I tell you three critical things, like you should have done this, why didn't you do that? And then I leave. That's what I
Yeah.
left you with, And then again, when you lay down and you're this bucket of positive emotional is next to you and it's filled with an abundance of negative, that you wake up with that. It doesn't just
Yeah.
disappear unless you somehow magically resolve it all in your sleep, but you wake up
Yeah.
and then that carries forward. So this is really important because there may be some negative emotional attractors you've been carrying around for years because a
Yes.
coach said something or a professor gave you feedback or something and it just devastated you. And because of
Yeah.
how you cared about them or the value you placed on them, you're carrying that around and you got to figure out how to resolve that. So Richard teaches, hey, our interactions have positive and negative charges. Our words have
Yeah.
positive and negative charges. Our gestures have positive and negative charges. If you're responsible and you care about the relationships, you will mindfully pay attention to how many of those you deliver. And even a constructive conversation can still be positive as long as you
Yeah.
know I care about you or I'm trying to help you get better. So it's not saying we just have to talk about rainbows and unicorns all the time, but it's saying, do I care? And do I care enough to think through what I'm going to say, or do I just unleash emotionally to serve myself? So this is really
Yeah.
important in the leadership, really important in the virtual space to pay attention to these positive and negative charges. Rarely will you lay your head down at night and say, gosh, today was completely neutral. I had neither good nor negative experience. You won't say it. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So someone is delivering to you all day long. Now you're responsible for some of that, how you process it. But in the large part, anyone who comes in interaction has a responsibility to take good care of you with their
Yeah.
words and their actions and paying attention. Does this have a negative charge or does this have a positive charge? Or checking back
Yeah.
in and saying, hey, I know that was hard to hear. I just want to check in with you. So these are kinds of things that we're teaching in our virtual leadership it's 101, virtual 101. Pay attention to the positive and negative that you deliver day in and day out to your people, because they're getting bombarded with negative all day long. So what are you doing to help them get through that?
I love it. That's awesome. So well put. So well put. Now, Laura, I mentioned at the beginning that you are a PhD candidate. You're getting your PhD. I'm sure there are listeners who have put that goal on their radar. Maybe there's people who have that goal down the road and they're working full time. So would you just share a little bit about your experiences of benefits of working and doing the PhD that you've found? And there may be some challenges as well, but I would love our listeners to hear a little bit about your experience, because it's such a powerful combination, that praxis, the practice and the theory, and combining those two, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that'll be a growing field. You're a scholar practitioner also. I think that's growing. So a lot of times you were either a scholar or you're a practitioner, and sometimes those worlds mix, but not often. And now it seems to be growing. And the beauty of that will mean that it's not just the number one bestseller. It's articles, it's work, it's research. There's so much fantastic work done in the academic field that needs to get in the hands of practitioners. And so the passion grew. I, like many people like yourself, I'm just a lifelong learner. I'll never be happy. My family keeps saying, when will you stop? So I said this will be the stop, but who knows? But yeah, we all have that insatiable need to know more, or to do more. Mine happens to be in the space of academics. It's hard. It's challenging, but again, it definitely serves my purpose, what I want to do. I love learning, I love growing, and I love sharing that with others. I love doing it for others. I love serving others in that way. So it was a natural course for me. And every time that I'm cursing it at 2:00 in the morning because I got a paper due, the next morning I wake up and I feel like this was the right thing to do. So when you invest in a way that aligns your purpose and your passion. And I know those are posters, those are rocks, those are all those things. But the truth of the matter is, when those connect, there is nothing that feels better than when you're doing that. So those two have connected for me. I love learning predominantly about leadership. I love sharing about leadership, and I love supporting leaders. I think it's one of the hardest, most selfless jobs, and I love supporting people who've invested and said, I want to lead people. So that's what I've made my mission, and I will always serve that group. But yeah, it's a tough go. If anybody ever has questions, they're free to reach out. You did the same thing, I believe. So it's not an easy road. And regardless of what's happened, I'm an in-person learner and was forced to learn virtually now. It's actually been pretty incredible. But yeah, if you've got that tingling in your belly, or you've always wanted to do it, I say do it now. Because the only thing that I've ever heard people say that have kind of thought about it is, I wish I had done it sooner. And that's the only thing I say. Try not to have too many regrets. But God, I wish I would have done it sooner. I wish I would have been brave enough or courageous enough to just do it sooner. So yeah, if you feel that, or you hear that voice in the back of your head, at least explore it. Look out. There's so many great programs. There's so many diverse leadership programs and specialties in the PhD space, and contributing to the practice, contributing to the theory and the practice is a gift to leaders. They love it. So yeah.
It is, because I agree with you 100%. It's difficult. I have so much respect when I meet someone like Tricia Griffiths from Progressive, or when I meet individuals who are leading, Chris Gorman at KeyBank. I just have such great respect for the work that they're doing, because it's not easy. It's incredibly difficult. And you're literally taking home the weight of those organizations at times. Yep. And so I love how you phrase that. Anything I can do to support them in being successful, I think that's wonderful.
Absolutely. Well, they have a lot to lose and little to gain. So it truly is selfless, right? They're doing it because they love it for the most part. So yeah. They need
A friend of mine is the CEO of the Cleveland Leadership Center, Marianne Crosley.
Wow.
I'm not going to get this exactly correct, but she says, our wins are theirs. She means her team.
Yeah.
And our losses are mine.
That's exactly right. That's right. When you lose, you lose. When you win, everybody wins, right? That's a good leader.
Yep.
So they have a lot to lose and little to win. So, yeah.
Well, Laura, as we wind down, I always ask a couple questions about what you're streaming, watching, reading, listening to. What's happening at the Guilliam household right now that kind of has piqued your interest, other than academic journal articles, which I'm sure you've been...
Yeah, there is little time for guilty pleasure, so that should endorse your program very highly. Luckily for me, you've decided to support an area that I need more information on, so you actually help me a lot of times. Some of the guilt, I'm with mainstream and a lot of that. I love the Joe Rogan. I love the Daily of New York Times. But when I do get the opportunity to go for a run or go for a walk with the dogs, I love two of my favorites are The Hidden Brain. It's just neat. It digs into a lot of the things. Why do you think the things you do? What generates different behaviors, and how do you deepen relationships? And then The Overwhelmed Brain is also one. Those two were ones that I got tips on from colleagues, and I haven't been able to turn them off. So those are the only four outside of yours that I actually listen to. Again, giving you high credit. I have a laundry list of ones. You've really connected me with the notion of how to consume information while doing other things, and I love that. So thank you for hooking me back up to this mode of learning and guilty indulgence.
Well, sometimes it's interesting. I'll even have something playing kind of in the background as I'm working on more mindless stuff. Yeah. But it's almost overwhelming. Yeah. Because I ask that question every time, and every time someone has something really, really cool, and then I want to go explore that. It's like, it reminds me of when I was in my PhD program. Someone would say, well, have you read? And then just fill in the blank. And, I would say, well, there's another book. So really, the only thing the PhD did for me was help me understand how little I do know.
That's so true. If nothing else, PhDs humble you to the point of realizing, holy cow, how did all of this exist? And I only knew a fraction of it.
Yeah.
Lots of great work. I heard Rob Lowe. I'm an 80s girl, the Brat Pack. Yeah. So I heard Rob Lowe came out with a podcast, and he interviews, different friends and stuff. And I wrote that down, like, I want to hear Rob Lowe's. So yeah, you've triggered something that now is an obsession. So thanks a lot for that.
Well, Laura, I am excited to follow your work, to learn more about what you learn about in your studies and in your research. And thanks for the work that you do. Again, so much respect for someone who's investigating the academic side and embedded in the practitioner side. I think for me personally, that both and is an incredibly powerful combination. I think both on their own can be great. Yep. But for me, I agree with you that space where there's both, I think there's room for that. I think it's critical. I think it's important. And if we are building leaders who have a little more intentionality, a little more awareness about the theory, what should be done in this instance, theoretically, I think that's a great world. I really do. So thank you so much.
That's great, Scott. You're right. Yeah, if leaders could just go that route and be more mindful about what they're delivering, but also more open and creative and really brave in that space, we're going to win. We're going to figure this out, and we're going to end up on the right side of this.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Be well. Take care.
You
and I
too.
am very excited. I owe you lunch in 2023 when we are back together in person.
Yes. All right. That's a deal. I'm marking it down.
Okay. Be well.
Good job. You too. Bye, Scott.
This may be one of my favorite episode titles, Relational Ingenuity. So what are the ingredients of relational ingenuity? What are the components of relational ingenuity? How do we still develop solid, strong, trusting relationships in this new domain I am very excited to learn more about Laura's research, to see what she finds, to hear some of the creative ways that people are staying connected in this digital space. Will we go back to normal? Of course. But there still will be some hybrid version. We talked in the episode about a both and. There will still be teams that are virtual. There will be teams that aren't together. There will be relationships being built where the individuals never meet face to face. How do we do that well? I'm excited to learn more. I hope each of you are well. Take care, and thanks for listening. You have been listening to the Practical Wisdom for Leaders podcast. If you liked what you heard, please share it with others and let them know what we're up to. And one last quick reminder to click subscribe so you know when we publish new episodes. And of course, we'd love to hear your feedback. You can stay in touch with me by visiting www.scottjallen.net or any number of social media platforms. Be well, be safe, and make a difference wherever you are on this beautiful planet. And now, here's Kate's twin sister, Emily, with the outro.
You've been listening to Phronesis, Practical Wisdom with Scott Allen.